Okay, we're going to get started tonight. Appreciate everybody coming out for the meeting. Let the record show that all board members are present. We're going to start with a prayer by Mr. Shoulders, and then I'll lead us in a pledge of allegiance.
Let us pray. Gracious Father, as we come to say thank you. Thank you, Master, for all that you have done for us. We ask that you would lead us in this meeting tonight. Guide our minds and our hearts, that we would do those things that are in the best interest of our system. We ask your blessings upon our members, our staff members, all of our school family who have been tragically touched by this pandemic. We ask, Master, that you would comfort them, give them peace. Now we ask, Lord, that you would take care of our children as they struggle through this unusual year. We ask that you just be with us and guide us. And we know that if you be with us, then we will get through this. So now we ask your blessings upon everyone that's here tonight. We ask that you would just continue to comfort us and lead us and bring us to that glorious day. Master, we ask now that you bless the superintendent in all of his endeavors as he continues to lead this system. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have an agenda before us. Do we have a motion to accept the agenda as shown?
I'll offer.
Offer. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Glaze. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Okay. Mr. Superintendent, we're going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do want to talk just briefly. There's been a lot of discussion statewide about students not showing up for school for the start of this year, and of course with so many different options available out there. So I did want to kind of look at the numbers, and the first chart that you have, which is that grade level enrollment differences here, you've got that. That's just showing you from year to year. So like if they were a kindergarten student in 2020 and then 21 they moved up to a first grade, that shows you that we lost 27 students from kindergarten to first grade, and then the same thing from first grade to second grade and so forth. So if you look at that, you see we lost about 164 students when you look at from year to year going through the chart that way. If you look at kindergarten included, we're down, and Bill provided me some information, but we're down about 239 students, okay? And so, we're up as far as overall because of Alabama Connections, but we have lost some enrollment as a district. But fortunately, it's not, a great number as far as losing. You don't ever want to lose students, of course, but it's not significant overall, I don't think, considering the times that we're in. And if you, like I said, the Connections is up, but I also included a chart for you that just kind of shows you what happened when students withdraw. And you have some that transfer to other public schools within our system, some that transfer to public schools in the state, private schools, church or home school, or they may transfer out of state. And so I know Mr. Glade noticed the numbers there being 700 and something, but we, of course, get a lot of students in. You lose students, but you get a lot that enroll as well. So overall, I think we were able to account for most of our students. And, like I said, the Alabama Connections is way up over what they were in the past. And, that number, 2,297 this year, they're up to 4,498. So that's a big difference in those numbers. But that's just an update on our average daily membership in regards to student enrollment here for the district. Also wanted to talk briefly about students that are virtual going to traditional. Elementary, we have 392 elementary students who are going to traditional, have decided to leave virtual second semester and go back to traditional setting. And so that's out of 819 students currently enrolled in virtual. So a pretty large majority there have decided to go back to traditional elementary school. 46 of those students have decided to go virtual that are traditional, okay? So they're leaving traditional school, going virtual. And so our new number as far as elementary virtual, where it was 819, is down to 473 elementary virtual students that will be attending second semester. When you look at high school, we had 411 students decide to leave virtual and go back to traditional out of 1,370, and 414 have decided to go virtual. So it's almost a wash between those two numbers in high school, between the 411 and the 414. So we'll be right at three more students. So 1,373 students will be virtual for the second semester. So that's just kind of how that plays out. Of course, you know, we're returning some teachers because we don't need as many teachers for elementary. Some of those teachers will be returning back to their home schools, and we think it was great that they got the numbers in early enough. We can make all these changes before January, so we can be ready to go with the virtual option, and also, of course, all the students coming back for the traditional option as well. We also just wanted to mention, yeah, I'm sorry, yep.
I hope we won't have virtual option next year, in August, but we may have to. Will there be any discussion about, correct me if I'm wrong, I think right now, if a child chooses a virtual option, he can still participate in extracurricular activities.
That's correct.
So I think I would advocate that if they choose virtual, then they're virtual, and they're not going to be able to allow.
You're talking about in the future after this year, right?
I wouldn't change it now.
Right,
Even
right.
though I think it was probably a mistake, but
Right.
we didn't know, so we're
Right.
learning. But I think if we go, if you're fearful of coming into the school and contracting the disease, or if your parents are fearful of that, I understand that and respect that, then you should be fearful that you also can contract it on a basketball court or a football field. And so we should not allow that. I think it would be for the safety of everybody. So just an option.
We certainly hope by next year we're not in the same place as far as hopefully there's a vaccine, and hopefully, you know, we can, of course, get back to traditional school as much as possible.
Before you, are you fit to leave the virtual versus traditional right now? Because I want to ask a question.
Yes,
as
sir.
to,
Yes, sir.
Can you speak a little bit as to how our students are performing using virtual?
It's all over the place, quite honestly. We have some that are performing very well and doing very well in their program. We have others that, you know, are not signing on every day, that are failing. It just really depends on a case-by-case basis. Some, you know, they have parents at home who are making sure they're doing their work at home. Others, you know, are left alone, and they might not have that option. So, you know, we've got folks that are trying to reach out to them. I know some of the individual schools have tried to reach out to them. You know, right now we're going through what we're going to do with seniors, for example, because we want to make sure they graduate. And so it is all over the place as far as, you know, there are some failing, but a lot are being successful. It just really depends on a case-by-case basis. But we actually drilled down, I don't have the numbers right here, but we actually drilled down, and we know what students are not being successful or not passing, and we're trying to find some ways, you know, to help those students out.
Do they have an option, those students that are not logging on and not doing what they're supposed to, do they have the option to continue virtual, or can we require them to get back in the classroom?
Right. We have allowed them continue with virtual, and one of the reasons, we do have a meeting with high school principals tomorrow to talk about that somewhat, but, you know, with us being in the situation we're in, you know, with COVID, we feel like, you know, that it would be, even though they need to be doing what they're supposed to do, we're trying to reach out to them. We've given them letters about making sure they're doing the work they're supposed to do. It may be difficult to force someone to come back that might be in a situation where they've got an elderly parent or something that may be exposed, since there has been a small increase in number of cases.
I'll just say this, and Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, sir.
Some of the systems around us, those kids who are poorly performing in virtual,
Yes,
they're
sir.
being forced to come back to school.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. And I think, with the high number of elementary students that are coming back, I think those parents certainly see the need
Yeah.
and importance of them coming back. Yes, sir. Any more questions on virtual, traditional? Okay, the United Way funding, we're anticipating some funding from United Way to help out in a variety of areas. One of those areas we're requesting, of course, is after-school tutoring. We feel like a lot of our students are going to be in need of extra help to get them caught up, and also looking at summer school options along with books for our students. And so we don't know exactly how much that is going to be from United Way. They're getting some money from the state. And that money should transfer to us once they look at our budget and determine how much each school system is going to get. Athens City will get some funds, and we'll get some funds as well. We don't know the exact amount at this point and when that's going to occur.
This will be down the road when we talk about summer school, because I'm not a big fan of summer school. I think you're just paying to get a grade myself. I've said that for years. But when we look at the summer school, and it's one, United Way is funding part of that, these students that are not putting forth any effort, they shouldn't be allowed to go to summer school. They should make it up in the fall or add another year to their education or something. They shouldn't get to go 3 weeks and pay for a grade and move on, in my opinion.
Well, there's going to be a lot of students that we have to look at to see where they are, because there will be a lot of students that are behind, and what will it take to catch them up.
You can tell it, y'all can tell if they've put forth any effort. And if they hadn't put forth any effort, they shouldn't get any, in my opinion.
One thing that we did discuss was, instead of having a 2-week option at the end of the year where they would catch up on online courses, is making that a 9-week time period. That's not been finalized, but so it could be more rigorous and you would have more time for them to do the course, instead of just making it a 2-week time period where you would make up the credit. So there are a lot of options on the table, and as we look at the numbers and actually see who's failing, we've got to determine, you don't want a huge number of students that are going to fail the current academic year. So what can we do to make sure they can pass and learn the material as well? And that's what our challenge will be.
We're giving them that opportunity through virtual, and I'm adamant about it. If they're not putting forth effort with virtual, we shouldn't put forth much effort in trying to help them pass in 3 or 6 weeks. They need to spend another year.
How successful are we in making contact with parents whose children are in virtual and are failing? What kind of rate do we have of recovering those kids and making sure that they're doing the work? What does it look like?
I don't know the exact number. I know I talked to a high school principal who her staff was doing that with the students that she had in virtual that was failing. And she had pretty good success rate, but I don't have a percentage or anything on, what percentage we're reaching. Once again, I think it really depends. I mean, some we can contact and get in touch with. We sent out another form that they had to sign if they were failing, and, some parents returned that form, some didn't return that form, of course. It just depended on the individual situation.
Can we get input from a administrator in the office, in the audience? Certainly. Do you want to make a comment?
Just because I'm at the tech school where Dr. Moody is at, so we talk every day. She calls and connects with parents constantly. That phone is ringing constantly. So I think Dr. Brad Lewis and Dr. Moody have really worked hard. I've seen it firsthand of communicating with parents and trying to get these kids to log on. It's been a monstrous task for them, and that they've worked really hard. So it's they know. The kids know, the parents know, it's on them, whether they pass or fail.
I think you get an update every day your child logs in
Yeah, you do.
to what
You do.
percentage
They're
they've
active.
completed or whatever.
Log in for 2 hours.
Every day that they log
That's
in.
for the high school kids. It's 2 hours a day they have to log on to get credit for that day. They're truant if they're not logging in.
I think, I mean, I agree with the comments being made over here. I think in our zeal to provide maximum flexibility, and, we don't want any student to be left behind. All that mess that we heard years ago, but we really do want to help folks, and we understand that we're in the middle of a pandemic. We don't want to, hurt somebody. But if we allow a kid who has not done what he's supposed to do as a senior to not fulfill what he needs to do, figure out a way for him to pass in 2 or 3 weeks, then I don't think I can sit at this table and have intelligent conversations with anybody who argues with me that 175 days or 160 days or any of those days are important to curriculum and to education, because if you can get a kid through the senior year in 3 weeks, then what we're doing is not, so we don't need to invalidate what all these other hardworking kids are doing by a few. And I'm not saying y'all would do that, I'm just saying we just need to make sure. If we
Right.
can track it, then we need to track it, and if they have to stay back and not graduate with their class, then you know what, we're gonna provide them an education, so we just don't need to overcompensate for them.
Right. I understand.
And my thinking is, let's not wait till the end date. Let's take care of it now. If we see that these kids are failing, let's attack it now, and somehow we need to get that kid and that parent in line with the school system, so that if they can't do it virtual, then somehow we need to get that kid back into the traditional school. And we need to know individually who's doing that, so that we may have to get truant officers to go to homes and say, this kid is failing, they can no longer do virtual, they got to be back in school. I mean, I think that's where we need to go, Brett, rather than waiting until the end of the year.
When they
Like I
leave,
said, that contact's being made now with letters being sent home and parents are signing, if they have, are failing. I mean, that notification is being sent out now and has been. When I met with Dr. Moody and Matt Taylor, that's one of the things we said, we'll make sure we make that contact to let them know that they're not being successful. Now, as far as timing, like I said, we talked about a 9-week period instead of a 2-week period, so that if they were failing, they would have that time and not wait until the last 2 weeks to let them make up a class. But of course, sometimes you have a child that they have a 65 or a 68. That's a little different than a child that has a 20 or 10 or hasn't even tried, for the semester. So once again, it's kind of individualized, and you've got to look at each case separately and determine where you need to go with that child.
I guess my concern is we have a lot of kids who don't know where they're going to sleep at tomorrow night. They're from place to place. And my concern is these kids don't have the support system at home to encourage them to do what they need to do. We need to step in some kind of way and make sure that that child is where they need to be, doing what they need to do every day. Now, if we're going to wait for 9 weeks before we can figure out or determine if this kid is failing, what has happened from start to 9-week end? I mean, we have sit and we have waited till the 9-week period before we can touch that child, to touch the parents. If that child hadn't signed on in 2-week period of time, if that child hadn't signed on and we see that there is no communication with that child, I don't see us waiting 9 weeks before we make contact. Am I making?
Absolutely.
No, Mr. Schroeder, I was talking about it at the end when they were failing, that we would allow, instead of like only allowing 2 weeks for them to make up a course, they would have 9 weeks to make up that course. Yeah, that contact's taking place, daily. And one of the unfortunate things is that, we know as we look at students who did not come back, there were a lot of students that did not come back that really needed to be in school,
Okay.
But parents decided, that they needed virtual, and they were worried about what was going on at the time, and and some are still worried about that.
I know that's going to be a big, argument as to, parents interfering with that education, and I don't want to say not looking out, for what's in the best interest of the child, but sometimes we look out for what is in our best interest rather than educating our children. And I guess I need not be concerned about that, I guess.
It's always a concern. That's our job for sure. Well, moving on to making sure we do take care of our students and making sure that we provide opportunity for our seniors. I had a great meeting with Vince and some other folks from the state about a Ready to Work program, and I was super excited about it, and I think Vince and of course John at that time joined us virtually at the time, but it's all about providing opportunities for our students to enter the workforce, and this area is busting at the seams as far as the different opportunities we have in the automobile industry. But what I liked about this program is that it looks at seniors who really don't have a path. They really don't have, they're not going to college, they hadn't decided they're going to college, they don't really have a job they're going to. So this would target those students. And, I called a couple of principals just to ask them, how many kids are we talking about? In one of the larger high schools, they said, about 40 students, in the senior class. They knew didn't really have any direction, and then a smaller school was 20 students that really didn't have a direction. So we would like to offer this, and I've not talked to our high school principals about it yet, but this is something I would really like to look strongly at for starting the following academic year, because I think it has some merit, and it really takes in, and I'm going to let John and Vince say something in just a second, but it really takes in like a semester, and so a teacher would just teach one period, and so the cost of it wouldn't be that great for us. They have an 80 to 90% success rate in placing students in jobs after high school, and so like I said, I want to look at it seriously, but Career Tech Center, they're wanting to look at it a little sooner, and that's why I'm going to let Vince, and then if John wants to say a word or two, just talk about the program.
John has some folders that more in depth of a group named Onin, who powers the Ready to Work. Just a little background on this. When I went into the Career Tech Center in 2013, I met Dr. Cleveland at the State Department level, and he was implementing simulated workplace. And when I met with multiple leaders of industry, what they wanted, and I was a young career tech director, and I would ask, well, what do you want to see in a welder? What do you want to see in a machinist? What do you want to see in a drafting student, a building construction student? And the main thing that most of the leaders of industry told me is that if you can teach them how to come to work, be on time, stay all day, have a good attitude, I can teach them what they need to know to work for me. So that's when it clicked that the simulated workplace would be perfect as a umbrella curriculum for our center, because not only a drafting student was getting the drafting skills, it was also getting soft skills in simulated workplace on how to obtain and retain a job. Okay, not only get a job, but be able to stay, in the workforce. And we put it in as an umbrella curriculum, and it's taken us a couple of years to get everything wrinkled out on board. But in the meantime, I wanted it to be a certificate. I wanted it to be a credential. I wanted it to be on their transcript, so when they went for a job, they could put it in their portfolio or resume as a check mark that they had completed a valid course or program with a certificate that would get them ready to go to a job, no matter whether they was working at McDonald's or whether they was working at Mazda Toyota or wherever. They had been exposed to the soft skills that required them to be able to obtain and retain a job. And it got shot down. They said that it was just too much. Had too many different people teaching that topic to be able to give a valid certificate for simulated workplace. And I was in a meeting at Calhoun a couple weeks later, and they started talking about Ready to Work. And I said, this is it, because it's the exact same thing. And at the end of Ready to Work, you not only pass Work Keys, which is a college and career ready credential to get you that check mark, which will help our report card. It had a certificate at the end that they could present to a potential employer to get them a job. And at that time, it was only post-secondary, so that kind of shot me down there. Well, we reconnected with Lynn Lane, who is over workforce development with Alabama Automotive Manufacturers Association, and she's a big hitter in the industry. And Ron Davis, the president of AAMA, he's an even bigger hitter in the industry. And they came down and met with us, and they really want to see our students exposed and ready to work. It's $2.50 a student. We can implement it with y'all's permission in the spring at our tech school. Dr. Wilson has been working very hard. I'm taking his thunder. He was so excited. He's been working very hard on rescheduling this spring to enable a couple of our instructors to have a block to target not only those students that don't have a career or an answer to what they want to do, but we want to target low socioeconomic students, and we want to get them in our center, and we want to give them a certificate, because we're working on a promotional video also, Mr. Shoulders. Goes right along with what you're saying. We're working on a promotional video along with AAMA, Haas Toyota Manufacturing, our career coaches, NAACP, and a couple other entities to get this promotional video made of our school, students working in the shop, in the lab, and we can get it out to these parents through social media, and it's also going to have tidbits of live work in industry in it to show the parents of the students in Limestone County how Limestone County Career Tech Center can connect their child to industry and land good paying jobs in their back door. And it's all coming together. It's all coming together. COVID's kind of hurt us a little bit, but you know, with Google Meet, we're overcoming it, and I think it's really good. I think it's going to be, it's get you the work keys and get you college career ready. Industry says if you've got the work keys, your application is going to come to the top. You know, that's the people they want. They want the people that have enough grit in their crawl to sit down and go through this program and be able to pass that work keys. But anyway, Dr. Wilson is taking the lead on Ready to Work, and he's going to, with y'all's permission, he's got a plan to implement it, and I think it's really good. And if we can get it implemented at tech school, pilot it, knock the edges off of it, then Dr. Shearhouse can take it, and you guys can take it and put it in our base schools, and we can touch even more students, because we need thousands of workers in our area. Now, are all the high school graduates going to go to work in industry? No, they're going to go to college, and they're going to try to get degrees and that sort of thing. But still, statistics are saying that 22% of your high school graduates obtain a college education, whereas the other 78% don't do. They need to be working in these industries in our backyard with total compensation, retirement, insurance. I mean, that. If I got 3 kids, I want my kids not only to go to college, but I want them to have this in their resume for a backup plan just in case they need it. You know, and then there's going to be a lot of people that, look at the people that made great livings at Saginaw Steering when it came in. I mean, it changed people's lives in this area. They could buy a house, they could buy a vehicle, they could feed their family, insurance for the kids to go, to the doctor. It's a good thing.
So as Vince said, I think it's something that we can implement right away at CTC, and something we want to look at for implementing in our high schools next year. But it'd be a good chance for us to see how it works for our kids. And they actually, I was excited, they also have like a signing day, where the businesses come out and the kids sign up where they're going to work. So it's kind of like signing a scholarship, and I just think that brings a lot of power with it and credibility. And if a kid can get a job making $15 an hour starting out, that's great. And so I think it's a worthwhile program for us to get started with.
So what do you need from us?
I'll do an agenda, a bar form for you guys to approve us to be able to teach us this spring, and we're going to put it in place.
Because there is some cost, like you mentioned, the $250 per student.
I just feel like we need y'all's blessing to be able to do it. And,
but schedule-wise, we feel like with
$250 per student, we're probably going to have. We're talking how many students, Dr. Wilson, this spring? Minimum 12. You figured out how we can teach it how many times a day? 4 times a day. 4 times a day, so that could equate to 60 students. And we're going to target seniors that haven't got a credential first. So so we can get them college career ready, get that check mark on the transcript. And, we're gonna target kids that don't have a plan, you know? And we had another meeting today, with, our partner in education, which is Mazda Toyota Manufacturing, Tony Everhart and Scott Russo and, Jim America, and they are wanting to make this commitment to us, Limestone County, because it goes back when we painted those cars for them and all that stuff we did for them. They know we're serious about it, and that's what they want. They want this ready to work, and they want to build these relationships, and they want to meet these students and know them by first name basis. And they're also, one of my requests today, I said, look, these kids need a list. They need a check mark. What do you want these kids to do before they graduate high school to be a potential employer? And they're coming up with it. They're also going to help us with video.
That's great.
So, if they're really committed, they're also going to commit the money.
We're talking $2.50 a student, you know.
Truthfully,
And I think they will, yeah. We didn't talk money because we're talking about educating students today, and that's, you know, the power of that meeting today. We can talk about money later, but it's just $2.50 a student.
You're talking less than 100 students.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, yeah, okay. I don't know why we need board approval.
Well,
Yeah,
I didn't want to start the program without the board knowing about it, and that's why we put it in the superintendent's report, so.
is this just automotive that you're influencing? Or?
All seniors. So, and just to reemphasize real quick what Mr. Green said, we're targeting students who have not met a career readiness indicator at all. So, at the end of this, they will have a CRI, and that boosts our report card and our college and career readiness. So, and we're already doing everything that this entails, except now they get a certificate that says they are ready to work in the state of Alabama from AIDP. So,
It's perfect for what we're doing.
Dr. Maples, I will say that because of all the suppliers and Mazda Toyota, that the automobile industry is a big part of this for sure, because, you know, they're major players in North Alabama.
Alabama's the Detroit of the South.
Mm-hmm.
Hyundai, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, list goes on and on. And that's just the main guys, the suppliers like Shape that build bumpers and reflectors and all of these companies that's in our area. Boshoku Toyota is going to build seats for them. I mean, it's just a lot of satellite industries in our area that supply what these guys need. They're going to roll a car out every 90 seconds. A completed automobile, when they're done, they're up and running. Every 90 seconds, a brand new car is going to roll off that assembly line. 90 seconds.
Okay, if anyone has any questions, just let me know, and, you know, but we just need to make plans for January, because this is our last meeting before then, so we wanted to share that with the board before moving forward. But I think it's a great program, great opportunity for our students. Okay, that's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So we're just got the email here from Kim on.
Yeah, I was going to kind of talk through that, if that's okay.
Sure.
Of course, Kim couldn't be with us tonight, and she joins us in spirit and virtually, actually. So she did send some information out to us. I think we've got good budget numbers, and certainly when you see your fund balance growing as much as it did this year, and you know, when the projection as far as a budget, you know, October 1st, $11 million, September 30th, $19 million was the budgeted amount, but it is actually $23,495,016. That's certainly great news, and I know that a couple million of that you can tie to us spending less, and of course we didn't have school the last part of the year, so certainly I think there were some savings there that we experienced. But sales tax also came in higher. And, you know, I know that the chart that kind of shows you that we were talking about a few minutes before the meeting that shows growth kind of later in the year, that constitutional penny, but then the lawsuit penny as well that came in. The lawsuit, that was a couple million more for the system. So you know, you look at those two numbers alone, you know, that's about $4 million with the savings and also the increase with additional penny. And you've got, as far as overall revenue, you know, the budget was $21,532,000, and the total, as far as revenue, was $28 million. And so certainly it's been some good times this year as far as funding goes. We hope that continues. We do develop a very conservative budget, hopefully both revenue and expenses, but we would like this trend to continue. And as we look forward, we do have some projects coming up, some building projects coming up. There'll be some things we would like to do at our high schools to improve programs there. And so we just really want to make sure that we use any money that we have wisely. And, you know, the needs are always great, and I know we've been very conservative the last couple years due to funding, but things are looking better, and, you know, commend the board and Ms. Hubbard for being fiscally conservative and getting through tough times and getting us where we are at this point, because it's certainly a much better place as far as Limestone County school system where we are. And, you know, if you look at the operating fund balance, 3.2 months, which is really, really good for a school system. So y'all are to be commended for making those tough decisions at times and getting us to be fiscally responsible and in good shape financially.
Okay. All right. Next, we have a consent agenda before us. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Chairman, I need to abstain from item A3.
Okay. So we had a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll offer a second.
A second. Any questions, any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Next, we have discussion approval of personnel action items before us. Do we have a motion to accept this?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Glaze. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Next, we have item 8, discussion approval of purchase of Wonder decodable materials for all kindergarten teachers and reading coaches at a cost of $26,325.20 from the state textbook fund, source of funding that. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer motion.
Mr. Charles makes a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Bradley a second. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I need to abstain from 9.
Okay. Did you get that, Ms. Campbell? Okay. Next, item 9, discussion approval of dual enrollment agreement with Calhoun Community College as revised per the 2020 Alabama Community College system. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer.
We have an offer. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Item 10 is discussion approval of payment of safety fin for service planning and monitoring plan fees at 7 locations. That would be Blue Springs Elementary, the Career Tech Center, Creekside Elementary, East Limestone High, Sugar Creek Elementary, Tanner, and West Limestone High Schools at a cost of $23,215.80. This is an annual budgeted item from the general fund. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer motion.
Mr. Shields makes a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Item 11 is discussion approve the renewal of Sophos SG 650 maintenance contract at a cost of $48,455.28 to provide hardware and software support for 3 Firewall devices. This is an annual budgeted item from the general fund. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer the motion.
There's a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Item 12, discussion approval of hiring of White's Painting to paint hallways, bathrooms, and exterior doors at Blue Springs Elementary at a cost of $12,700. This is from local school funds. Do we have a motion to accept this? We have a motion by Mr. McGill. A second?
A second.
Okay, Mr. Shoulders makes a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? It is unanimous. Item 13, discussion approval of renewal of a joint maintenance agreement between the Limestone Board of Education and Giles County Board of Education for bordering school students for the 2020 to 2021 school year. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Item 14 is discussion approval of renewal of a joint maintenance agreement between Limestone County Board of Education and the Lincoln County Board of Education for bordering school students for the 2020 to 2021 school year. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer.
We have
I'll second.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Item 15, discussion approval of a resolution to employ and consult with investment banking firm of Raymond, James and Associates with Bradley Arendt Bolt Cummings LLP as a bond counsel and to enter into such agreements with said firms as the superintendent and chief school financial officer deem appropriate and desirable. Do we have a motion to accept that?
I'll offer motion.
Okay, Mr. Schultz makes a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Mr. McGill, second. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Item 16, discussion approval of purchase of a take-home books for pre-K through 5th grade students at a cost of $17,688.14, and United Way is a funding source for this. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, do we have a second? I'll second it. Any discussion?
It's my understanding we hadn't got the funding from United Way yet.
That's correct. But we do have backup funding for this purchase in case United Way, for some reason, something happens, but that is the plan to use United Way funds for these take-home books. I did think it was interesting when we were at the conference, one of the speakers talked about how many children don't have books at home, and I think this is a great opportunity to provide that. But Earl, I did take care of it just in case, it was an issue with United Way, but that is the plan for us to rely on that funding. But we have funding elsewhere, and I would change that if we did spend it from some other source.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Item 18 is discussion approval to purchase COVID-related personal protective equipment, sanitation. I'm sorry, I did. Discussion approval of September 2020 bank reconciliation and financials. Do we have a motion to accept that?
Offer motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Now, item 18 is discussion approval of purchase of COVID personal protective equipment, sanitation supplies and equipment at a cost of $129,928.70. And this is from the Coronavirus Relief Fund. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer motion.
We have a motion to approve
I'll
this.
second.
And a second. Any discussion?
I have a question. Have we spent all of our COVID money?
All the one that had to be spent by the end of December, that's getting very close if it hasn't been all spent. But then the first CARES Act money doesn't have to be spent until next year sometime. So we still have some of those funds available.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Item 19 is discussion approval of purchase of 6 carts and 144 Chromebooks at a cost of $45,558 to be distributed to all 6 base schools. Fax program to aid in the serve-safe credentialing. The funding source is Perkins funds. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer.
Have a offer. Do we have a second? I'll make the second. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Go
What
ahead.
is Serve Safe credentialing?
It's a credential offered by our Family Consumer Science programs, also by our culinary program. In the state of Alabama, it's state law that every eatery has to have a serve-safe credentials employee on staff if the doors are open. So it's a very valid credential. once you pass it, it's handling of food. You get a credential on how to properly handle food. Yeah, if you got that credential, there's no problem to get a job. So we're, Dr. Wilson and myself have dedicated a lot of that purchase money to help our base schools. That's going to further connect our one of our goals, which is closing the gap between equity and access, which is Perkins 5 law. Dr. Wilson is an expert in that area. He can talk about that if he needs to. But that's what it is. It's serve safe credential of handling of safe food. And every eatery in the state of Alabama, by state law, has to have someone on staff that is certified, serve safe, if the doors are open. And it's family consumer science, all those instructors, Dr. Wilson lined it up where they could all be certified serve safe instructors, which is pretty an in-depth process, but our new culinary architecture table Reg Cone was able to do that because she is a certified serve safe instructor and was able to certify our family consumer science student teachers to become serve safe instructors also. So we're going to really push it out to a lot of students.
So my question is, how does the Chromebooks help with that?
A lot of it's online, and the Chromebooks just gets a device in their hand that they can log on online and do practice tests and tutorials to pass that test. Now, the test does cost, but we cover that with budgeted state funds for credential testing.
Since COVID hit, now the curriculum's online and the testing is online. So everything that they do is on a computer to get that done.
How are they doing it now?
They're not. They're after we get these Chromebooks in, they will. So they just got trained last month. They're pretty, and so we've been setting everything up for them to get that done. In the past, they offered guest services gold in the family consumer science programs, but that's no longer a credential. So now we're pushing out serve safe to all practice programs.
Well, prior to the pandemic, how was it offered?
Oh, book, and then there's a book, and then the test was still online, so they had to go to a computer lab, and then the teacher would proctor it.
Is this required for accreditation?
No, sir.
Okay.
I know in the past, I've had, like, the health department has offered the classes for students, you know, to get their certification. So I didn't know, you know, I'm sure it's online and they can do that as well.
The Chromebooks will just be a device that will make it more easily accessible, whereas these family consumer science teachers are jockeying constantly to get the mobile card or to get the computer lab reserved, which is usually occupied by someone else. I think it will cause our pass rate to go up, or really to make it easier accessible for those teachers in class, rather than take their device to another location on campus, which may already be reserved by someone else.
Right. Right, but I bet they'll keep, in this situation, they'll keep using those for those students in the future. And it gives them access to having that available in each classroom, you know, so they don't have to go borrow a cart from.
Sorry, we sidebar.
Is there any other discussion? Okay. All in favor? It is unanimous. Item 20 is discussion approval of recommendation to approve the Chapman Assistant Architects as an architectural firm for various Limestone County Board of Education projects. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer motion.
We have a motion by Mr. McGill, a second.
Second.
Mr. Blaze, a second. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Okay, that concludes our meeting. So thank you for coming.